sat up in a tree for over 30 days. Uh, she and her mother just came down on Saturday. I just interviewed them. And as you could see, literally, this is the aftermath of their tree sit. As soon as they got down, they cut down the tree, the platform. Um, right here, you see all this cut down trees. This is Miner's brother, son of Red Terry. Can you kind of talk about? You were just taking me through while Miner was up on this platform. You and some others were kind of camping out in support.
Oh yeah.
You kind of made this like makeshift bridge down there to get over here. Uh, little creek there, but they pretty much cut this down lickety split.
Oh yeah. Didn't take them long at all.
Yeah, and talk about how long did it take for her or whoever made this to kind of set up this platform and set up the tree sit.
The base of the platform took about 20 minutes to make. Just a sheet of plywood with some 2x4s and joists to give you support. The handrails were an afterthought once we got it up to the tree. It took four of us, I think, and a pulley. And like one guy climbed the tree, was up there, hooked up the pulley, hoisted it on up, lagged it into the tree, and installed it.
And when you look at like we were just kind of higher up on the mountain, looking at hundreds trees that are hundreds of years old, cut down, apple trees that Bent Mountain used to produce a lot of those. You kind of look at this, um, just what's your initial feeling?
Um, I'm a little disgusted. They have no plans to do anything with these trees. They're just gonna let them lay, let them rot, maybe push them into a pile and burn them, push them to the side while they do their construction. Like that's a lot of good wood right out there. That'd be firewood for life for us up here. It's just gonna. They don't care about it. They want
Mm-hmm.
the pipe in the ground. They don't want the wood.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that I mean, we could look at the police tape down there.
Oh yeah.
Literally, the police put yellow tape like it's almost like a crime scene.
It was an active crime scene when she was in there.
Really.
Oh yeah. She's being charged with 3 misdemeanors. I think obstruction of or contempt of court, like trespassing on property rights on her own property somehow. And I can't remember the third one. Maybe contempt of court or something like that.
It's kind of backwards, where you're trespassing on property that's been in your family for
Yeah.
generations.
Yeah. It's kind of an insult.
Yeah. And, we were talking earlier, how, it's not like they could rebuild trees here.
No, it'll be another 100 and some years where we see trees back here again if we stop the pipeline and keep them from putting it in the ground. If they do get it in the ground, it'll just be grass. They won't allow anything to grow on it.
And kind of talk about, we already see a creek down there. Um, there's creeks all over here, streams.
Mm-hmm.
This is the beginning of the stream that goes into the Roanoke River, which is a lot of people's drinking water. Talk about the risks.
Well, this stream right here in particular, about 1,000 feet up is where it comes out of the ground, out of the spring. So there is a lot of water coming out to have like running water right here. What they have to do, MVP, is dig 10 feet down to bury this pipeline, and to do that, they're going to have to. They're just going to blast. Like they're going to get their backhoes and dig a little bit. You probably got like a good foot of dirt under you before you hit bedrock. And we're afraid as soon as they do blast that it's going to shift the karst topography that's under us right now, and who knows what's going to happen to this little creek right here. And if it dries up, well, that's just one less feeder into Bottom Creek that's feeding Roanoke River, that's feeding, I haven't seen the exact figure, I think 120,000 people are drinking off that.
And it's like your dog is just roaming around right
Yeah,
now.
we played in it all this entire month. We had a bunch of little hellion children having the time of their lives in there. Yeah, Tier 3 waterway, meaning the state and the federal government certified it to be exceptionally clean water. Like you just don't get that naturally anymore, and they're gonna ruin it.
Hmm. And let me zoom out here so you can see. Hold on. I mean, look at all that deforestation. Just tree after tree after tree after tree cut down. It's kind of hard to explain, but when you're here, it's just the destruction of land for an oil company to make money. It's kind of crazy, and greedy and awful. And one more thing, and my audience is asking you to kindly speak a little louder.
Oh, okay.
So
Sorry.
yeah, we don't have the perfect equipment. What would you tell other people watching what they could do? Because it's not like this pipeline is all, pipelines like this are only going through, you know, your land. It's going through everybody's land. Eminent domain has become a kind of a joke, kind of a legalized mob system
Yeah.
to take people's land. What would you tell other people? And speak as loudly as you can.
I would ask that you guys who are watching, who are sharing, you need to call Governor Ralph Northam and tell him to do a stream-by-stream analysis, because they did not know this stream was on their map. They just wanted to go right through it. Give him a call. We need to comment on the DEQs, water board, like let them know technical comments apparently about the waters used for drinking, and I don't know, just blow up the governor.
Yeah.
Like he's being complicit in it all.
And I think that's important because, you know, most of the media, they only cover Trump, and Trump's evil, and I agree. But there's a lot of Democrats. There's a lot of Democrats culpable in these things too. Democratic governors, Democratic mayors, that they take big oil money and they look the other way.
Oh yeah. Northam is definitely looking in the other direction. He was not concerned about stopping the pipeline. He was concerned that my mom was still smoking in the tree. All right, well, a lot of people smoke. Like, you're about to destroy the water. Like, stop.
It's
We don't
fun.
need it.
It's funny that she's very concerned about her smoking in the tree, but not the tree and what's under the tree exploding
Yeah.
and killing her and God knows how
Yeah,
many
never
others.
mind any of that. It's a 42-inch, 1,400 psi natural gas pipeline in terrain that has never been attempted. Like you can see how steep it goes all the way up that way. How steep it turns, it twists. Nobody's ever attempted this. 1,400 psi is not a joke either. That's a lot of pressure. If it leaks, I assume it's just going to come shooting and rocketing out of the ground. If it blows up, I have heard it's going to be a 2 3/4 mile kill zone, which is a lot of people up here. And nobody can put that fire out. They just have to wait for it to burn. And they decided it was so rural out here, they don't have to put the emergency valves every 10 miles. They can do it every 20. So it's going to be 20 miles, 42 inches around of natural gas just burning while everybody just watches it.
Well, let me tell you, in areas where there's less people, but those people have a shit ton of money, oh, you better believe they'd have those pretty much every half mile.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. So I think that's lost in this. It's, you know, they're putting compressor stations for the Atlantic Coast Pipeline in a very poor black neighborhood, but they're putting these pipelines through. I mean, you folks aren't rich up here. It seems to be kind of, yeah, let's make our money on the backs of poor people, black people, you know,
Those without a voice. Yeah.
those without a voice. That's a good way of saying it. And as I wrap up, like I said, everyone who's watching, share the video, get it out to as many people as you can. We'll be here for a few days. We just did a long interview with Cole's mother, Red Terry, Cole's sister, Minor Terry. We'll be cutting that up into, you know, mini clips. So you could, if you don't have the full time to watch the whole thing, you could get as much of it as possible. We're going to interview other people over the next few days, but picture's worth 1,000 words. I mean, this is just utter destruction. And what's kind of unique about this, I think, obviously there's pipeline protests going on throughout the country, but now we're seeing people, you know, in North Dakota, we saw them chaining themselves to construction machines. And now we're seeing people, you know, protest through Mother Earth, protest climbing their trees, you know. Again, their trees. Don't let judges or all these people say, oh, you're trespassing. No, they are basically mangling mangling the law to let the oil companies do whatever the hell they want. And that's really what's going on here. They're twisting the law to let the oil companies do whatever they want. Eminent domain traditionally was to build highways, was to build, schools, things that the public actually needed. And this is not for public use because Virginia, actually, the pipelines that exist now are only at half capacity. So they don't really need these pipelines. Genesis just joined us. My audience.
I don't know if you guys mentioned this.
Go ahead.
A little bit. Speaking about a family whose history I only know a little bit from growing up around here. I don't know if this was mentioned that the Terry family, since they did own a huge chunk of this family. Did you mention this already? That 100 years ago there was no electricity up here, so the Terry family gave a bunch of their property so they could put telephone poles and or some of these high voltage towers and stuff, so they could be service the community. There was no school up here, so the Terry family gave that plot of land over there so that there would be a school on Benton Mountain. So it's not a family who doesn't understand like how to serve the public good.
Right. And we were talking a little earlier, kind of about the scam of eminent domain and how they're kind of just twisting the law to serve them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and now they can claim this as one of their assets. So they're actually making money off of it too, because now this is part of their assets that they can claim some ownership over it, even though it's a LLC that'll just disband as soon as that there's an accident or a leak or anything.
Right. Right.
People are disgusting.
And, as we wrap up, can you kind of talk about, bottom line, climate change is not something far off. So at the lower level, these people's lives are at jeopardy because if it explodes, 2.5 mile blast radius, there's a lot of dead people.
Yeah.
But, you cutting down all these trees is only accelerating our planet burning, and everybody's at jeopardy.
The way I look at it is basically that it's crazy that it's right here on our front doorstep in our community. And this is just one part of this larger whole that's happening all over the world. It's not just the corporatization of the world, but it's definitely global warming. All these things, this is just one little branch on this larger tree, and that's, feel like it's our duty to fight it here on our front step. It's definitely, there's a lot of levels to this. That they're using frack gas, which is a bad idea. That the frack gas, where it's fracked, is destroying water tables up in West Virginia, where this is coming from. The fact that they're taking over people's property on the way through here, and they're shipping it out to third world countries.
Portugal, Poland, to name a few.
Yep. And not third world countries, but yeah. I think India was one too. I think they have contracts with. So yeah, they're just fueling it over there. This whole, I think a lot of politicians got sold this false idea that, this idea of natural gas as being a stepping stone to a carbon-free energy source, but it's not really. Once you start taking into all of these small little things add up, whether it's the methane release from the compression stations, they don't take any of that into account. There's a lot of other issues that haven't been taken into account.
Yeah.
And it all adds up. And right here, this is just one little branch on this larger problem. But it all adds up.
And one viewer just commented, "Where's the NRA? I thought they were against tyranny." So you see a lot of the conservatives. Actually, a lot of conservatives are against this because it affects them. But overall, a lot of conservatives are very pro, fracking and gas and oil. Frankly, Hillary Clinton might be president today if she stood up a little stronger against fracking.
Oh yeah, the same thing I'd say to Northam too. That's why the Democrats, it's because of stuff like that kind of an attitude that made me really question Hillary Clinton, and now I'm like even more against that. So I think the Democratic Party has a really big problem there. But yeah, I think a lot of those type of really conservative people are easily manipulated by some of the propaganda, especially like NRA is just a propaganda machine. And I don't want to go off on other tangents, but I think once you sort of describe to people, I think a lot of people you get comments saying like, oh, get them out of the trees and stuff like that, and you say, oh, okay, so that means that you really are pro the government and the corporations coming in and stealing people's private property. And then it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's like, no, you need to stand back and look at the larger scale of this. And then, and I've had some success talking to people about that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it where Red, her daughter, Minor, climb up their trees on their property that's been in their family since the 16th century, I believe. And they're being told you're trespassing
It's sick.
on their property.
I can't believe anything that's more un-American. That's sickening. It's absolutely sickening. And the fact that Judge Dillon voted in the favor of the corporation just shows you how corrupt that is. It's sickening. The fact that she cited cases that were used against coal miners in West Virginia that stifled their ability to use their own free speech. Those were the cases that she cited. Is sickening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it's again, this is a branch of a larger thing, which obviously even the coal miners are fighting for. But yeah, these corporations will just act with complete impunity, just do what they want to.
Right.
Okay.
And I mentioned it in my interview with Red and Minor, but I mean, FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, I mean, take the word regulatory out. They have never denied a pipeline permit.
No.
Since 1986, they have not denied a pipeline permit.
Yeah.
So how is that not just kind of an arm of the oil and gas industry? Because you could do, I mean, they didn't have stream by stream analysis here,
Nope.
and they basically just granted them eminent domain anyway.
Yeah, yeah, and it boils down to like DEQ in Virginia, all of that. They're just mouthpieces for corporate insiders and for the oil and gas industry. That's all that they are. And I don't know. Shit, I don't know what. Aside from doing this, like, I mean, sometimes I feel like I have very little hope for America as a whole because of this. There's no accountability. I do know. I mean, like Tim Kaine has started saying that we need to address FERC and the energy, which is great. It's one little step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
We need more than that.
Right.
Good Lord, we need more than that. That's just one senator, man. Phew. And then there's a lot of Virginia state legislatures and stuff that are addressing it, and I cannot thank them enough. And we need more people like that. And I would like to say that those politicians, those politicians in the Virginia legislature that came out a couple weeks ago, and then also the Democratic committees that came out last week. I mean, that's a step in the right direction, and there's a little bit of hope there, but they need help too.
And what's your message to people out west, down south? It might not be a forest where the pipeline's going through there, but pipelines are going through everywhere. It's not just pipelines; they're putting new power plants. There's landfills that are leaking nuclear waste.
That's the problem. If they can do this here, they will do it anywhere. And as our natural resources are shrinking, I mean that's a fact. Our natural resources are shrinking. These companies are getting more and more aggressive. So, okay, this might be happening in some rural mountain on the top of the Appalachian Plateau in Virginia, the Blue Ridge Plateau. It's not going to stop. They're gonna keep taking and taking.
And I think everybody focuses on Trump, and CNN focuses on Trump, and the New York Times and all that. And he's an evil man. Don't get me wrong, but
Yep.
Ralph Northam has the power to stop this. The governor of Virginia, who, mind you, I recall getting all those fundraising emails from the Democratic Party. We have got to get Ralph Northam. And Terry McAuliffe, by the way, who was governor before Ralph Northam, he started the process of allowing this.
In secret. He had secret meetings to made all these deals to grease the wheels to make this happen. And that, again, like I said, that's why people aren't going to want to vote. Because what's the difference? And, like I would say to Ralph Northam, what's the difference between you and Trump? There's none. I mean, for God's sake, man, get some balls and stand up for what's right.
And one more, before we end, Coles, and talk a little louder. People were having trouble hearing you. Yeah, you're a mild-mannered guy. What's this done to your family? Like I was talking to your mother and your sister, and I mean, they're having trouble walking because sitting up in a tree for that long. Mm-hmm. Obviously, your body's stiff. Just has this, I know it's been emotional and devastating to see this, but the wider community that's come together. I mean, when Red was being taken down, there was like some 200 people gathered around, like,
Yeah.
and you know, you have on social media now the overflow of support. People on our live stream, Jen, there were people from other countries,
Yeah.
other countries watching and interested. Are you encouraged at all by the overflow of support?
Absolutely. I didn't realize I knew our community was strong. I didn't realize we were this strong, and I didn't realize we had such great media presence that everybody is now being woken up and acknowledging the crime that is happening here right now. Poor mom and minor, you know, they haven't worked in a month and a half. They've been cooped up in a tree for a month and some change. It's been stressful. It's extremely stressful to think you can try to stand up to $1 billion corporation when I know they're probably monitoring our calls. They're probably checking our mail.
Well, Minor was 2 in the morning. She was talking about people. She didn't know them. She didn't know if they were kind of coming for her. Because a lot of these pipelines, they have these private security companies that are basically there to spook the hell out of people.
Yeah, so that's just been stressful. It's been scary. Just to try to make us roll over and submit.
Yeah.
Wrong community, man.
And just turn it on me if you can. I will end with this. Listen, I'm climbing up a mountain after back surgery, right? This is not about me. This is about this. I mean, look at this destruction. You're not going to see this anywhere. You think CNN's coming up here? Please. Yeah, if you could prove Putin cut down the trees, they'll be here in a jiffy. This is what we need. We need more attention on, it's not just the destruction of the planet or the country, but it's the destruction of basic humanity. We talk about, you know, we started a revolution against tyranny in Great Britain. Well, what the fuck do you call this? This is tyranny. And I'm not supposed to say that because I'm a journalist, but I just speak the truth. I mean, tyranny is when you're controlled and you don't have freedom. And this is tyranny. And, you know, it's been difficult for me the last few months because, you know, I had surgery and other things. I couldn't get back here and show this. But this stuff is happening all out in the open. It's just that our media is completely bought off. YouTube, the platform I'm on right now, is literally suppressing journalists that are not from CNN or bigger outlets. They are suppressing us so you can't see the truth. Maybe their corporate advertisers wouldn't like this. But this is what's going on. And it's not just environmental. There's a lot of corruption involved with this. There's local Virginia Congressman Goodblatt, I read about, that has a blatant conflict of interest. He's invested in a holding company that's invested in these pipelines. I mean, this is legalized bribery on steroids. And by the way, one of you, I think, said it, or Red said it. These oil companies, if they would get their brains on connected straight, they could make just as much money, if not more money, if they shifted tomorrow to solar and wind without destroying people's property and not to mention the water and the animals and, you know, all that. So all I ask, if you can contribute so we could stay, literally, you should see what we're working with here. Jen is not a camera person, but she's my camera person today. We barely have a working microphone. We barely have anything. We're starting from the ground up here. So if you could contribute to the Patreon, this is what it's for. Patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. If you don't want to do monthly, you can make a one-time contribution to my PayPal, paypal.me/Jordan Chariton. But I'm not, I'm not interested in reporting on like Rudy Giuliani and stupidity he says, or, you know, Russian trolls and all this bullshit that doesn't matter. This matters right here because I think he said it best. If they could come and do it through the Appalachian Trail, by the way, they're doing it through the Big Bend region in Southwest Texas. I covered that pipeline down there. Before you know it, they'll say, too bad that your kids go to daycare there. We need the gas, so to speak. Because these, and by the way, I've covered this enough. It's not only about the money for these oil companies. It's about unfettered power. These are people that something is lacking. Something is lacking internally. particularly empathy, not to mention a few other things. So, bottom line, if you can't contribute financially, share these videos. Don't just share the videos, but get on Twitter, get on Facebook, get on everything you're on. Write a separate post with these videos. You know, the hashtag is Stand With Red. The hashtag is No MVP. There's another pipeline, Atlantic Coast Pipeline, which is kind of like the evil stepbrother of the Mountain Valley Pipeline. That's Dominion Energy, which I've only been in Virginia for a day now, but I hear Dominion owns the state of Virginia and its politicians. Frankly, you know, Genesis was talking about Tim Kaine. Call Tim Kaine's office. He said something. Well, get him to say more. Get him to do a press conference. Get him to come down here. I know he's up for re-election, but, you know, some things are more important than whether you stay in office. Tim Kaine, who, by the way, hate to break it to you, has taken an ungodly amount of money from Big Oil. He's saying the right things, but we need more than talk. We need action. So we will be here for the next few days. There's also another, come over here for a second. There's another protest going on from, I don't know, is her name Nutty?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's what we call her.
a woman named Nutty has been protesting since the end of March, I believe, at a separate location where the National Forest Service, you know, we think of the National Forest Service, they're dressed in those, you know, weird costumes or whatever, and they're supposed to be there for the protection of the forest. They are literally blocking this woman who is basically climbed up a monopod. She's been protesting, I think, for a little longer than your mom and sister were. And they are basically zoning it off. They're changing the rules every day. So people that come in from all over the place to support her cannot get close. Because obviously I haven't climbed the tree, but the hardest part is isolation. So they want to make sure anyone climbing up trees to protest, and basically the protest is to stop them from cutting down the trees because the pipeline company needs them to cut down the trees to put the pipe in. They're trying to make sure that nobody could get up close to talk to the person, to encourage the person. With Red and Minor, musicians came to play for them. People came from all over the place so that they weren't alone. And they're trying to block that. They're trying to block food donations. They're trying to block your sister needed sunscreen because she had very little protection above her and she was getting burnt. I mean, it's just inhumane, the whole thing. Bottom line, think of like those old, you know, Huckleberry Finn or those old tales you read. Climbing a tree is American, especially on your own property. And somehow that's now trespassing, essentially because the judges, for the most part, have you heard a lot of cases where a judge says, oh no, I'm ruling against that oil company? It's all one it's a revolving door of corruption. So we'll cover as much as we can. Your contributions are going to keep me out here a little bit longer. So again, patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports or paypal.me/Jordan Chariton. And by the way, this is a much bigger vision. I've announced it already, but we're launching a media network. This is just kind of like the on-ramp. We're going to have other reporters going to cover things like this. So definitely share this, and we'll be back live probably later in the day. Thanks.